I'm going to show you how to make a flyer using Adobe Illustrator. Really, anyone should be able to follow along with this guide, even if you've never used Adobe Illustrator before, any Adobe product. You should be able to make a flyer using Illustrator once you've completed this tutorial. So I'll be using the Adobe Creative Cloud software package. I don't know if a free or trial version of the software is available, so for all of you CU Denver students, if you don't have Illustrator and want to follow along using the program, I know that some of the computers on campus have Adobe licenses. I'm pretty sure I've seen it on a computer in the North classroom in a lab on the first floor, but don't quote me on that. For those of you who already have Adobe Illustrator and are even already using it, I hope this guide is helpful and will teach you something new. So let's get started. Today we'll be making this flyer. It's pretty simple. A lot of times people use kind of too many effects on flyers, I think, so it makes them kind of hard to read. So this flyer is going to be going to professionals and some businesses. It's for geospatial happy hour, so it's a lot of GIS professionals. So I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. All right, so step one, we're going to set up the Illustrator document. So you're going to open Illustrator if you haven't already. There we go. It'll bring you to this opening screen. If it doesn't, all we're going to be doing is making a new document. So you can just go to File and New, or you can click this icon, or you can just click Command N on your keyboard. So now we're at the new document dialog box. The name doesn't matter. We're going to be renaming it in a second anyway. It's letter size so that companies can just print it from their own printers. It's going to be going out digitally as well, and so it's really easy. Just do 8.5 by 11. People can print it from their office computers. I use inches. You can use pixels, meter, metric system, whatnot. You have between portrait and landscape here. I'm using portrait. Bleed doesn't matter because the size of the document is the same size as the paper on which it's being printed, so you don't have to worry about that. The advanced does matter. It'll probably look like this for you. Mine's already open. You just click that drop down arrow, and we're going to be in the color mode CMYK for printing. We want it to be high, the 300 pixels per square inch, and the preview mode doesn't matter. So just click OK. And you're going to get this. I'm going to make sure we're recording really quick. Awesome. Okay. So just a blank document. Let's go ahead and we're going to File, Save As. You can either do it from your drop down, or on your keyboard you can hit Shift Command S. I'm going to name this Marissa HH Flyer Draft 1. This is going to be saved a couple of times, so it's best for this first one to name it something that you're going to recognize as your Scratch file. Some people just name it Scratch. I'm going to name it Draft 1. And then we're going to save this as a PDF. It doesn't need to be as an Illustrator file. And you can just save it to the desktop. Because we're going to click this box that says Preserve Illustrator Editing Capabilities. Saves a little bit of memory because you don't have to have two separate files. PDF is really printer friendly. It's also digitally friendly. Go ahead and create the Acrobat layers from top level layers. This other stuff doesn't really matter. We don't need to compress. It's not that big of a file. Marks and bleeds don't matter right now. Pretty simple document we're going to create. So you can save the PDF. Close out of Illustrator. And I will close that. So we're going to make ourselves a little database. Images, when you put them into an Illustrator file, they will link. And so if the image ever moves and you try to go in and edit this, you'll have to relink it, or if you've lost the image, there's really kind of nothing you can do. So let's go and make a new file for our little database. And I just have everything on the desktop. This is the document we just made. I'm just going to drop all of that into this file. So now our little database has the two images I'm planning on using and our draft. So this is for the center picture and then the logo. All right. So that's done. Step 2, we're going to go ahead and add the main image. We're also going to be using a clipping mask in order to make that rectangle shaped image into a polygon. So open up your little database, your little folder, and you can right click on this. Because it's a PDF, it wants to default with preview. So you're going to right click on it and go to Illustrator. If you don't have right click set up, it's no big deal. You can just hit Control on your keyboard and click on it with your normal left click and open with Adobe Illustrator. Alright, so now we're also going to do the same thing to the mountain ridge image. If you want to keep following along, because we don't have the same documents, you are more than welcome to pause and download a couple of images off the internet to be able to use them for your flyer. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to use Command-C on my keyboard. I'm going to close that tabby. I don't really need it anymore, and I'm going to add it to our flyer document. Let's go ahead and scale it. I right-clicked and go to Transform, Scale. I'm guessing like at 30%, so I just typed that in. I just realized I did that really fast. So Transform, Scale. You have your uniform scale, so you're also able to do it differently, horizontal and vertical. Uniform scale, 30%, and click OK. I'm going to go ahead and rename this layer. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to name this main image. And it's just habit for me to go ahead and create a new layer because we're going to end up needing it. So you can create a new layer just by clicking this new layer button right here. You can also delete the layer by clicking this little trash can button right there. Okay, so now that we have our main image here, I want this image to be in the shape of a polygon. So we're going to go over to the shape tool, the rectangle tool, and we're going to hold it down. So right now I'm holding down the left side of my mouse, and while still holding down, I'm going to go to the polygon tool. And we have it. That's what little crossbars mean. Doesn't really matter where you make it, you're going to move it anyway. I clicked once, and let's make it 3 inches and just see what happens. 6 sides, it's perfect. So this is too big. I'm holding down the Shift key on my keyboard and have my little bars over here. I'm going to click the left side of my mouse. I'm going to resize this to be kind of about the same size as the image. The Shift just makes it so that it resizes proportionately. If I don't hold down Shift, that's when I'm able to kind of change the size. So I did Command-Z to undo that. Command-Z just on your keyboard. It's really good for any undo. I just realized I didn't tell you what I was doing. So I want this to have a black outline, just really more for my own visuals. So if you click this, it makes it black and white. If you click this, it makes it empty. And that way I'm able to figure out where exactly I want to put this polygon. So let's, that looks about good. We have the peak in it. Now I'm going to select both of those, the image and the polygon, by just holding down the left side of my mouse and highlighting both of them. I right clicked on it and we're going to go to Make Clipping Mask. So there you go. You have your little main image polygon. It doesn't really matter where you put it. Probably going to end up moving it around anyway. Let's go ahead and lock that layer. I just locked it by clicking this little square here. Sorry about that. I gotta drink really quick. I don't want anything else happening to this layer for a while, so I'm gonna go ahead and lock it. So let's go to layer 2, and let's see what step we're on. We got the main image done. All right, let's make some titles. So with making titles, one thing I really like to do, well, first let's go ahead and rename the layer. So I double clicked on that. I'm just gonna name it title. And I'm going to make a new layer because it's habit. There we go. One thing I really like to do is make myself a little palette over off to the side that we're going to delete later. So I'm going to use this new layer and I'm going to name it palettes. I'm going to lock title for now. The reason I do this is you'll see, well, actually you won't see because I did all of this vetting previously, but as you're going through things, you're going to want to change stuff. You're going to want to change the colors. It's really nice. You're going to want to change the font. It's really nice to have it already over here for you. It makes it easier to keep track of. So I'm going to hit the T button on my keyboard, or I can just hit the T over here in this toolbar. I'm going to drag that out. I already know what fonts I'm going to be using because I did this earlier. So I'm going to go up to Balboa. There we go. I could also filter. These are my type kits. One really cool thing is that the Creative Cloud software package, you can add fonts from online, and you have a ridiculous number for free a year. So I added these earlier. So here's Balboa. I'm going to type in Balboa so that I know what font it is. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because I can't see anything. There we go. So there's one piece of our little palette, and then holding down the Alt key on the keyboard. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key with the left side of my mouse. I'm going to drag this down. It just duplicated it. You can also do this by right-clicking. Oh wait, I take that back. You can also do this by doing Command C and then doing Command V on your keyboard. So that's Command C, the letter C, and then Command V. That's pretty standard with most software packages. And that way, because we're going to be using 3 fonts today, rule of threes is really good. You want to use no more than 3 fonts and no more than 3 colors. Otherwise, it just confuses people. This next one is going to be Bungee. And we're going to name it that. And then this last one is going to be Annabers. We're going to name it that. So there we go. We have our 3 fonts. And then we're going to make 3 little color palettes. So you can either click the M key on your keyboard, or you can click the rectangle tool. I'm just going to make some little squares. To get back to the arrow, you can either click over here in your toolbar, or you can click V on your keyboard. So I'm going to hold down Alt again to copy this, drag it over, and do it one more time. And we're going to make it look like this, which means we're going to need a yellow, kind of a gold, and a gray for our palette. So in order to change the color, we're going to double click this big square here. And you can move this sliding bar, and you can move this guy by just clicking on it. So there's our bright yellow. I want this one to just be a darker version of this one. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool. You can either click the I key on your keyboard, or you can click the eyedropper tool from your toolbar. And you're going to click on the color you want it to be. And it changed this here. So we're going to double click that. We're going to make it darker. And then click OK. Back to the arrow. This one I want it to be a gray. I want it to be in the blue spectrum, even if it's not noticeable. I do that anyway. So there we go. So those are our 3 colors. If I wanted to add a border to one of these, I would use this one. But I don't want to do that because I want it to be plain. So I just did Command Z on my keyboard to take that back. I'm going to save real quick. It's just good practice. All right, sorry about that. So we are going to, now that our palettes are done, you can leave them locked. There's really no reason to need to open them again. So we're going to go back to our title layer. We just unlocked it, clicked on it, so now we're on it. I'm going to hit the T on my keyboard. It's really good to learn keyboard shortcuts. Makes life so much easier. So we're going to put our main title here. I want it to be centered. So this is going to be Happy Hour. And I want it to be in Bungee. I'm going to come over here and click the eyedropper tool. And click Bungee. And then I'm also going to click the yellow. I forgot to center those. That's why it moved over to the left. Is it copied even the formatting of this? So we're going to click the yellow. Put it back over to the center. And then, let's see, we're going to want that a little bit bigger. How much space do we have? There we go. So let's make that an 80 point. So there's the first part of our title. I'm going to hold down the Alt key to copy this. And then I'm going to come over here, click the eyedropper tool or hit I on your keyboard and click the darker gold. Now I don't want this to be in front, I want it to be behind to look more like a shadow. So you can either hit Shift, Command, close bracket on your keyboard, or you can right click, go to Arrange, and send to back. So that is pretty much what our title is going to look like. One of them. Next, I want to make the date right here. So let's refer back to our little flyer. We're going to put the date right here. I want it to be the same color as this, so I'm just going to copy it down, holding down Alt on my keyboard and using the left side of my mouse. Like that. It's going to be the 30th of June, 2016. I want this one to be in Balboa. You're welcome to either come up here and go to Balboa since you have it there for reference, or you can use the eyedropper tool. Let's make that a little bit bigger, like a 90. Okay. Where everything is placed is not super important right now. What's more important is just that we're getting it onto the document. I'm going to resize this text box so that I'm not clicking on it later. Just pull that up. I'm using the left side of my mouse just to move that, and we're going to save. I'm going to copy this down one more time because I'm going to be using, what is that, Bungee for the where and when titles. So where and when. So we'll put it about center, not a huge deal. Where, make that a little bit smaller. And then, so that's yellow, we want it to be gray. We're going to use the eyedropper tool, hit I on the keyboard, hit the gray. We're going to underline that word, so I just clicked up here on character. If that's not visible for you, you can go to Window and then Character, or not. Okay. Maybe it's just perma visible now. So click on Character and underline, just a little T with the underline under it. Just clicked on it. There you go, we have the where. And then over here, we're going to change this to when. So this is really totally fine where these are. Like I said, we'll probably move it around a little bit more later. I'm going to keep on reaching all the way to the bottom. Just kind of a habit thing. It makes it easier to format things later. We are going to be making things into outlines, so it's not super important. Just as long as you have it on the document somewhere is what's really important. So we're going to save this since we have finished our titles, and we are going to move on to inputting copy. So let's see, where are we? We are on step 4, input the info. So we're going to input a little bit more info about the event. We call that the copy of the document. So let's go ahead and lock the title layer. And let's make a new one. So this is just going to be copy. Basically the same steps that we did earlier, which is just creating text. So make a text box up here. I want something that's gonna kind of tell people who's invited without really saying who's invited. So this is really for any geospatial professional that didn't go to the Esri UC in San Diego this week. They normally have a big party on Thursday night, so we're doing a happy hour at the same time. It's that big party. So didn't make it to the Esri UC, come out this Thursday for a geospatial. So and UC is just user conference. So you can make it friendly to your viewer. I don't even know if that's what I said earlier, but that's okay. So we're going to leave that as Balboa, I believe. No, we're not. We're going to change that to bungee because we have it here. I mean, you won't always use it. It's kind of more for when you are still playing with things. It's easier to have it right there. And change the size so that it fits in there. Just drop down, or you can use these arrows until you see it fit. It looked like this one was Anniverse. So we can just move it. Pull this down a little bit. Not super important. We're going to be formatting a lot more later. We want this to be that gray color though. So I'm going to highlight it, click the eyedropper tool, or hit I on your keyboard, hit the gray, arrow tool back. We want to underline that. So character, I'm going to unclick that underline. I'm going to actually just copy this down. Just kind of easier than remaking a text box every time. Resize it. Getting it to at least the correct size is pretty important just because that's not something we're going to really change later. We'll change more just like the positioning of stuff. So where is it? Fado's Irish Pub. Let's keep this up for a second. You can also use the hand tool to move. I clicked the H on my keyboard. You'll also see a little hand in your toolbar, so you're able to move that. Go back to V, and click T on the keyboard. I'm going to delete that. I want it to be in this font. So, Fado's Pub. And then I'm just going to copy this over since it really has all of the settings that I want already. That's giving me a little center line. Just typing, not super important. All right, so stretch this back out. Make these a little bit bigger. It's a little bit more important. That's kind of too big. Let's make it 32. I just want that to be really visible. So that looks like all of our copy. Let's go ahead and lock that. See if we have another coming up. All right, we do. So we're going to give credit. We're going to give credit where it's due. So I did not take this image. I actually just realized that I forgot to show you how to make it look faded. So I will do that in a minute. I did not take this image. A friend of mine did. So we are going to add a little image credit. So let's make a new layer. And this is going to be a footer. I click T on the keyboard. I'm going to make some text. Image credit. Go ahead and make that smaller so you can see what I'm typing. I did talk to him before this. He doesn't really mind whether I put an image credit or not, but it's, you know, it's respectful. It's good practice. Definitely, if something on the flyer is not yours, you need to credit the person. So I clicked up to this arrow. One thing is if you are in text, you cannot use keyboard shortcuts because they will show up in the text, and a lot of times you will not catch them later. So I'm going to click the arrow key from the toolbar, and then I'm going to click the eyedropper key. There we go. Made it that same gray. Now we're going to use the same thing. I know that I'm going to be putting a logo here. Haha, it's not supposed to be gray. It's supposed to be gold. I'll do that in a second. I'm going to have this say hosted by. And here we're going to go ahead and change it to a left align so the logo will fit in there. I made these the wrong color, so we're just going to change that really quick. What color are they supposed to be? Dark gold. There we go. Just used V, so the arrow tool, and the eyedropper tool. That's really it for our footer. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Make sure I'm recording. Okay. I believe our next step is adding the logo. And that's still in step 5. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lock that. We're going to make a new layer. We're going to name this logo. With bigger files, it makes a lot of sense to have everything individually named because you're going to end up going through a ton of stuff, and not being able to find it is really a pain. So we'll just minimize this. Still have this folder open. This is just that little database folder we made. Right click on it, open it with Illustrator. It's really a lot easier. There are ways to link through Illustrator. There are ways to place things. It's just a lot easier just to go to your destination folder and open it, copy it. I just did Command C to copy it, close the tab, and then Command V to paste it. And now it's in our little logo layer, which is nice. Especially if you can't remember where you've saved this logo and you use it for a flyer in the future, you are able to open an old flyer and find it. All right, so credit is given. Pause real quick. And we are going to start doing some more stylistic touches to this document. We've saved this as draft 1. Technically, your first draft is finished, so we'll just save that. And then we're going to do File, Save As, Draft 2. We're going to be making some changes that you're going to want to be able to come back from, so it's good to go ahead and save it as a new document. Same thing, you're going to preserve Illustrator editing capabilities and create the Acrobat layers. So just make sure those are checked. Embed page thumbnails isn't a big deal at all. I just keep it checked so it's in my settings. Alright, so here's our draft 2. Earlier I forgot to do transparency on the main image, so we're going to do that really quick. I'm going to copy this image over just by holding Alt on my keyboard, copying that over, and we're going to release the clipping mask that we made earlier. So it is good that I messed up because you're able to see that you are able to come back from cutting an image. It's not totally permanent. We're going to delete that background image because we really don't need any more. So just release clipping mask. I clicked away with the selection tool, selected this image. I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard, and now you can't see the polygon anymore. That's because all of its settings are invisible. And that's another good thing about having everything locked is I'm able to just select over and find that polygon again. I want it to be white, so I'm going to click the black and white tool. I'm going to click the border and make the border invisible. So now we have our polygon back, and it's going to be the exact same size as the main image. In your layers toolbox, you're going to go over to transparency. And here is where you have some different filter effects. This is kind of how you're able to edit an image without opening it in Photoshop. So you can do lighten, you can soft light, which actually looks pretty good. And You can do things like multiply. You can't see the multiply on this one because it is lighter than this image, so it's not going to make it any darker, but if this polygon were a darker color, you would see the effects on this image. So let's go ahead and go to lighten. We're going to change the opacity, say to 60%. It's a little too light for this flyer because I didn't do it earlier. The entire flyer is a little bit darker than the sample one. It kind of plays tricks on your eyes a little bit. We basically came up with these other colors based on this image, just how it is. So let's make this a little bit lighter, or not as light, actually, less opacity. There we go. So now we have a little filter on our image. It doesn't just look like a straight image. We can go back to our layers. We're still in the main image. We're going to go ahead and center these things so that there isn't any gap. We're going to center it horizontally and then vertically. We don't want these to be able to move around separately, so we're going to group them. You can either hit Command G on your keyboard, or you can right click on it and click group. Same thing to ungroup it. You can either hit Shift Command G to ungroup it, or you can right click on it and click ungroup. Alright, so we're just going to group that back and go ahead and lock that layer. Make sure recording. Alright. So the reason we save this as a separate file is because we're going to make this font no longer a text box. So let's unlock all these layers, and I'm just using the left side of my mouse and dragging down. So I clicked here, drag down, and you can lock and unlock all the layers. We want all of the font, so you can either use the Shift key on your keyboard and click all the different the different text boxes that you're going to want to select, or you can select them in the Layers toolbox by clicking on a little square over here and holding down the Shift key on your keyboard and clicking another little square. We're going to right click on that and we're going to click Create Outlines. So now your font is no longer in a text box. It's actually technically an image. You're able to shape it, move it, just as you would an image, which makes it a little bit easier for formatting. Let's go ahead and save this really quick. Just good practice. All right, so we're in draft 2, so we don't need our palette anymore. We can either delete it and then delete the layer, or I just did Command Z on my keyboard to undo all of that, or you can select the layer and click the little trash can button. It's asking me if I'm sure if I want to delete it because there is artwork in that layer. It's really good fail-safe. If you think a layer is empty and you go to delete it, it will alert you that it's not empty. So that's kind of nice. But we knew that we didn't need anything in that layer anymore, so we just deleted it. If there wasn't anything in that layer, it wouldn't alert us. It just deletes it. So now we want to center everything. This stuff down here, we really don't want. We don't want it to mess with it. It's fine how it is. It's kind of more of a hand formatting kind of area. Make that a little bit bigger. So as you can see, I'm just kind of hand moving the text boxes, using the arrow keys on the keyboard. Shift will make it so you can move kind of bigger leaps without holding down Shift on your keyboard. It just kind of nudges it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and lock the footer and the logo. Everything else, though, can be centered overall. All right, so we have these when and wheres. Because they're not in the center of the flyer, we're going to group them so that they don't move into the center when we center it. So I'll show you what would happen if we didn't group them and we hit center. So they end up covering each other up. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that they're top even. by hitting this top align button in the align. If your align toolbox isn't there, you can go to window, click align, it'll pop up a little toolbox. So you'll top align that. With the when, we're going to go ahead and center that. With the where, we're going to go ahead and center that. Again, same thing with the when and where. Make sure they're bottom aligned because they are underlined. They look pretty good. So we're going to group all this so that when we center it, it is centered as a group and not individually. When I hit group, it added everything to the copy folder. It actually took the when and the where from the title layer. Another reason why we save it as a second draft. So everything else should be good to go to be able to just be centered. And we want to make sure we center the border with it as well. So shift it off a little bit, just the arrow key. And there you go. You can really eyeball it. 1/8 of an inch isn't going to make a difference, especially not on a commercial printer. Unlock the logo in the footer. Select these two layers just to move them down a little bit. Select those. Everything looks pretty good. I mean, you could make this a little bit bigger, make it smaller, move it around. I might make it a little bit bigger. We're going to center that again. Okay. Move this around a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So here's your second draft. Everything, looks good. It's formatted well. See if I can. Now we're going to do save as again. And we are now moving on to step 7, which is getting your flyer ready for output. We're going to save this as final 1. Especially if you're working with other people, you want to start numbering your finals. They're going to want to put edits. A lot of finals are going to start happening. It's going to get really confusing. So save that as final 1. Same thing, preserve editing capabilities and the Acrobat layers. The other stuff doesn't matter. So make sure everything's unlocked. We can get rid of this align toolbox. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to select everything. So everything here is selected. We're going to go to Object, and we're going to flatten the transparency. So I want this one to be a high resolution. I want it to be ready for printing. I'm sure we've all seen that in Microsoft Word when you send something over the internet or you go to print it and things move around. This is making sure that doesn't happen. It's not very common with PDFs, but flattening as transparency makes it one solid image. We're going to preserve the alpha transparency because of the transparency we put here on the mountain image. Okay, so now you have it just in one layer. We're going to rename that. It's the final flyer, and we can delete all these other ones. You can go ahead and save that. This flyer is completely ready for print, this PDF. We're going to go ahead and save a second copy of this with a lower resolution in case you want to send it through email or you want to post it on a listserv. So we're going to save as again. You can hit Shift-Command-S on your keyboard, or you can go to File, Save As, and we are going to save this one as low res. Same thing, preserve, editor, abilities, and Acrobat layers. I'm going to go to Document Setup, and here in the Document Setup dialog box, we are going to go to the Transparent Overprint, which is what was on the Flatten Transparency options, and we're going to change this to a low resolution, and just click OK. Once that's done, you can save it. We're going to quit out of Illustrator, clear the clipboard. There's probably a ton of stuff on there. go back to our little database folder. And everything we just made is already in here because working out of here, it sets it automatically as your destination. So I'm going to go to our kind of print ready final one PDF, and I'm going to open it with preview. If you're doing this on a PC, you can really open it with any image viewer. I'm hitting command and the minus sign to zoom out, hit command plus to zoom in. So looks good. File, print. Because you're going to be sending this to other people who are going to be printing it, you want it to be set to your printer settings. So you're going to click scale to fit so that it fits it all in. For some reason it really wants to cut it off. So just hit scale to fit, PDF, save as PDF, then go ahead and change this file name to print. It's going to save it to your desktop. It's totally fine. Alright, so now that we're here and actually finished, I realized I forgot to show you how to check spelling in Illustrator. So we're going to go ahead and spell check this document. I'm going to open draft 1. Hopefully nothing's wrong with it, otherwise we have to go through those steps again. Okay. Unlock all these layers. We're in draft 1. Make sure that the selection tool V is selected. You can really click on any of the text boxes. I'm just going to go to edit and check spelling. And once the check spelling dialog box comes up, you can click start. It doesn't recognize that word, but I know it's a word. It doesn't recognize that. UC just stands for user conference, so I'm going to ignore it. Geospatial is a word. I'm just going to make sure I spelled it correctly. Ignore that. We know that's a word. Photos. Doesn't really matter. So we're just going to ignore everything we know. It looks like there wasn't anything big, so fortunately we don't have to worry about that. We're not going to save those changes. We didn't change anything. And there you go. So we can open this in preview and you can take a look at your final flyer. And there you go. It's ready to be sent out. If you're going to be sending it just digitally, you would use the low res one if you're not expecting anyone to print it out. If you are sending it to a business that you are expecting them to post it, you would send the print version. And there you go. You are almost. There you go. You are all done. All right, thanks guys.